Fox News senior strategic analyst. So, General, are you buying Iran's denial?
Oh, no, not whatsoever. I'm buying Saudi Arabia's intelligence system, which is absolutely excellent, and particularly when it's focused on Iran. I'm sure we've got some information as well, and the Israelis too. And listen, in 2019, the Iranians delivered a pretty significant attack on the Saudi oil field, shutting about 60–70% of that down. It was a massive attack, and that's what the concern is here. Not just the Houthis lobbing a rocket or a missile or two towards Riyadh. They're concerned about a comprehensive attack. And by the way, they provided to the United States intelligence that the Iranians would likely attack Erbil, which is a city in northern Iraq, what we refer to as Kurdistan. For the obvious reasons, that's where the Kurds live. But it's also the home for a U.S. military base. We've got about 2,000 to 3,000 troops in Iraq. Obviously, that's a modest number, but for them, that's a serious issue. And a U.S. warplane just recently shot down an Iranian drone that was in the vicinity of that Erbil air base where our troops are. So, yeah, this is a serious threat, to be sure.
Now, I don't want to discount the threat to our troops or to the people in the Middle East, but we are also in the middle of a very wobbly world economy that's been made a lot worse by the Biden administration's energy policies against fossil fuels. We've got an oil shortage. We just found that the reserves are down much more than expected last week. Going into the winter months, for a war that could, or even if it's just a skirmish that destroys some oil fields in Saudi Arabia, that could really kill the world economy.
Yeah, it would hurt it. And of course, the Iranians have displayed that kind of mischief before. I mean, I disagreed with the decision in 2019 not to respond. Saudi Arabia did not respond, and the United States didn't respond. I thought that both of us should have hammered the Iranians for that comprehensive attack. So they're back again. And yes, that is one of the things they want to do, and certainly is get that kind of world attention distracted from what has really taken place inside Iran. I mean, this protest that's going on, David,
yes.
We're in the 47th day.
Wow.
This is really unprecedented. It was started with women over the hijab, but, you know, right below the surface, there's a universal lack of human dignity, personal freedom, and a definite yearning for democracy and freedom that many in the world truly enjoy. And it's like pulling a scab off. And that's why this thing has generated. It's now in the university system. And much to my surprise, 2,000 academics from the United States have signed a letter, 10 of them Nobel Prize winners, condemning what is taken, and sent the letter to President Biden and telling him he's got to do more. And I agree with the basic premise of that letter. The administration is not doing enough and should be speaking out on a regular basis and get the world behind us as we have done in the past, and make certain that the protesters on the street out there hear our voices and that we're behind them.
The other thing is, let's face it, Iran was on its heels with the sanctions from the Trump administration. Those sanctions, they weren't entirely lifted, but there was all this talk about a new deal with Iran. Maybe that's on hold now. But again, it appeared that the Iranian economy and that the pressures against the regime were mounting during the Trump administration. This administration, the Biden administration, came in and kind of changed that equation, and that didn't seem to help the situation.
No, not at all. I mean, the very month they took office, the Biden administration, they reached out to the Iranians to renew the deal. And without talking to the American people about it, they began to ease up on the enforcement of the Trump sanctions. And I think if the Trump team had come back into power, not only would they have continued the sanctions, but as all sanctions go on over time, loopholes develop where the person that's being sanctioned or the country starts to take advantage of it and figures out how to escape some of it. They would have closed those loopholes. There's a lot of work this administration has to do here. Yeah. It looks like the nuclear deal is dead. Good thing. Yeah. But let's double down on the sanctions. Let's get the Europeans involved who are not involved in the sanctions anymore, and have them double down as well and get serious about this thing. The Iranians are very serious here, and we've got to be the same.
And finally, there's our relationship with the Saudis. I know it's been complex ever since 9/11, even before that. But the first foreign trip that President Trump took to anywhere in the world was to Saudi Arabia. He realized how important our relationship was with the Saudis. And that's even when we had energy independence. So if that's the case, is this administration not aware of the importance of our relationship with Saudi Arabia? They didn't seem to be when the president went there. Are they beginning to learn that lesson?
Well, I hope so. I mean, I've disagreed with them from the beginning in blasting the Saudis right at the beginning of the administration, stopping the flow of weapons to Saudi Arabia and to the UAE. What a terrible message to send after the Middle East had just, many of the countries had joined the Abraham Accords, and for the first time, we were stitching together the beginning of an alliance against the Iranians, and with Israel no less, which is extraordinarily significant. And that's what they should be building on. This is a major issue countering Iran, and Saudi Arabia is the centerpiece for that countering Iranians. And on that basis alone, the relationship is completely justified, not to speak of the fact that the Saudis have been a huge intelligence source for us post 9/11 on what has taken place with the radicals in the Middle East.
And let's remember, by the way, the Abraham Accords is something that John Kerry, an administration official, said would never happen. And of course, it did happen. And thank God it's still intact, at least for the moment. But we could improve on that if we develop better relations with the Saudis. General, we got to leave it at that. Thanks very much for being here. Appreciate it.